At David Security here once again with the Tunisia security update, giving you the 2017 security outlook for Tunisia. Now, this video is mainly intended for international organizations operating in Tunisia, thinking about operating in Tunisia, also for expats living in Tunisia, and also I want to share some information that could possibly help travelers as they make their decision about traveling and visiting Tunisia. An overall security video for people interested in the security situation in Tunisia. Obviously, I want to do this in less than 5 minutes, and there's a lot to cover, so let's just get right into it. Before we do, let me just point out that as we speak right now, there's an inquest taking place in London regarding the attack in Sousse. So as we speak right now, this inquest is taking place, and there's a lot of information that unfortunately is not looking too well for Tunisia, for the tourism sector and so forth on a PR standpoint, because a lot of the information, a lot of the shortcomings that happened on that day, during the attack is coming out. So a lot of people weren't aware about the shortcomings, about the security flaws of that day. So unfortunately, that information is coming out. But you know, it's also we can also say that Tunisian security forces have come a long way from that day, and that there's been a lot of improvement, if you will, on as far as response, as far as capabilities, and so forth. But my hearts go out to the families out there in London and from that most unfortunate event. But let's just get right into the outlook for 2017 for Tunisia. So what we got here, the first thing I want to talk about is the theme of this year. The theme of this year for Tunisia is how they, or the theme or the challenge is how they deal with the returning fighters, terrorists, criminals, jihadists, whatever you want to call them. Tunisians that went abroad, mainly young males that went abroad, they're coming back home. And that is the question. How are Tunisian security forces, the government, the legal system, politically, ideologically, how are they going to deal with that? And that's really going to be the test for Tunisia this year. It's going to make or break them in terms of success and progress. So that is the question, is how do they deal with this threat, this situation, this dynamic that's taking place in the country. Now, I briefly mentioned that Tunisian security forces, their capability and their response has improved. We see that that's mainly in part due to the support and training and equipment by countries such as the United States and so forth. But it also has to do with structural changes that took place in Tunisia after the Ben Garden attack. Really, that attack really hit home for Tunisians, for the security forces. They sort of woke up and said, hey, this is serious. This jihadist problem, this terrorism problem, we need to address it. So we've seen a lot of improvement in that way, but they still have a long way to go. When we talk about improvement, we're mainly talking about their counterterrorism capabilities, their ability to foil plots, to identify threats before they develop. And because they've improved in that direction, we're seeing a lot of arrests. We recently saw, in a span of a week, we saw over 7 cells being disrupted, or members of the cells being arrested. So very active, very proactive on the Tunisian security side. So that's as far as the Tunisian security response is concerned. Now, the travel warnings and advisories, very hot topic. I see Western countries being very conservative for Tunisia until they see a sort of 2016 was a very, compared to 2015, 2016 was a relatively peaceful and smooth year for Tunisia. We saw a lot of progress, a lot of stability. However, Western countries are still going to be very conservative about the security situation in Tunisia, avoiding risks and advising their citizens that way until they see a sort of long-term trend in the way of security response and the security setup at tourist sites, hotels, and so forth. So the chances of us seeing a lifting of or a loosening, if you will, of the travel advice and warnings is very rare for 2017. Anyway, I'm about to hit my 5-minute mark here, and I just wanted to, once again, put a lot of value in this video. There's a lot of articles that you can read that I briefly touched upon. We saw that the first cruise of the year has docked in to Tunisia. I actually wrote an article about that. So maybe that's a good sign of what's to come. But the bottom line is, if Tunisia remains proactive as far as their security is concerned, and by proactive I mean the arrests of these cells, the consistent security postures at hotels and tourist sites, and just overall stability, then they will have a successful year. But unfortunately, it doesn't take much for things to get really challenging in Tunisia because it's a small country and because they're new to all this security business and so forth. So it doesn't take much for things to get disrupted, and therefore we have to take a conservative approach to Tunisia in terms of our risk assessments, and we have to remain vigilant while we operate in Tunisia. So anyway, I hope you liked this video. I hope it had some good information for you. If you would like more information about our security consultancy, simply go to www.expatis.com. So that's the video for today. Hope you have a safe and prosperous